Good afternoon, buenas tardes. It's a pleasure to be here this afternoon with you. Thank you so much for bearing with the Los Angeles downtown traffic. But we continue to be this is Hollywood, so for us, anything we can do to try to attract some of the film back to Los Angeles and Hollywood, we're trying to do that in every way possible. So thank you for bearing with us on the traffic. How many of you are outside, from outside of Los Angeles? Well, welcome. And you have beautiful weather. Why wouldn't you want to live here? This is why I never left. Well, thank you very much for inviting me to speak to on your women's conference. A couple of weeks ago, I had the pleasure of being here and speaking to a group of women from Los Angeles. How many of you have ever heard of HOPE, Hispanas Organized for Political Equality? We had our Latina History Day in this very hotel, and we talked about the importance of Latinas and why it is so important for us to be at every single level of government, particularly when it comes to elected office. You know, I am very proud to represent the community that I grew up in the San Fernando Valley, and I'm currently the only woman on the city council, which is very embarrassing and very pathetic. Because in a city with 4 million people, women make up 52% of the population in the city. The fact that there is only one woman representing us on the LA City Council out of 18 positions. There's 15 of us on the city council. There's a mayor, a controller, and a city attorney. That makes up 18 seats. I'm the only woman on that LA City Council. We need to do more. We need to do it faster. And we need to ensure that women are being prepared to run for office. I often get asked, well, what would propel you to want to do this? You know, it's a very difficult career. Some of us, you know, unfortunately, unlike men, we also have to grapple with the fact, do our partners want us to enter in political world? We have to figure out when we want to start our families. Those questions don't necessarily come up from when they're running for office. And so when I started to think about running for office, I like to say that I was in the 5th grade when someone asked me, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I said, I want to be the governor of the state of California, and everybody laughed. And I was very lucky that I have my parents who are 83 years old and still live in that little house in Pacoima from Zacatecas. I was very lucky that I had parents that were constantly being involved in community affairs, and I always had that eagerness to find out what makes someone a good elected official. How do you become one? So I always had that political bug even since I was a little girl. And when my mom came home and I was in high school and she said that her factory was going to get moved to Mexicali because you know, it was cheaper to pay people there, quite frankly, and that my mom was going to lose her union job. The job that paid her $15 an hour back in the 90s, which is almost unheard of these days. The factory job that employed almost 2,000 people in the community of Pacoima and the San Fernando Valley. Back when Los Angeles actually made things here. We made cars. The General Motors plant was in Van Nuys. We had the Carnation plant in Van Nuys. We had Price Pfister, which was where my mother worked. To have my mother come to us and say, our jobs are going to leave and what are we going to do, was probably one of the scariest times of me growing up. And we quickly had to figure out how to help my mom, who didn't speak English and who a lot of the workers did not know what their rights were. So out of necessity, we began to organize Pacoima and figure out what can we do to retain these jobs. Long story short, the company eventually left, and over 3 to 5 years, they started to close down the factory, and almost 2,000 people became unemployed overnight. And so when people talk about Latinos having to organize, a lot of us unfortunately had to organize out of necessity. So when I get to come back and represent the community that I get to serve now, I ask myself, what do we need to do to improve things here? On the city council, I championed things as good paying jobs, and I was one of the leaders in making sure that our city adopted a $15 an hour minimum wage. And as a leader of the city, I also want to ensure that the workers of hotels, like the one that we're here today, that the trabajadoras and the camareras that have to lift those heavy mattresses to do our beds when we stay in these nice hotels, that they too are entitled to $15 an hour, and we champion that on the LA City Council. And one of the things that I'm the most proud, the one that takes the largest amount of time to try to figure out how to fix, is this issue of human trafficking, where men think it's okay to come into my district and purchase a 13-year-old daughter for sex. Completely unacceptable. And if you do, you're called a child molester or a pedophile. And if you're trafficking little kids to this country, then we need to lock you away for good. And that's one of the things that we've been championing on the LA City Council. So when they ask me what makes women want to run for office, these are the different issues that we take on. We are not shy about what we believe in, and we're not shy about what we want to fight for. Ladies, if you want to run for office, you got to get in that pipeline. I often talk about that pipeline, and what I mean by that is where are the open seats in your community, and how do you begin to organize the base to be able to be in front of the line when that seat becomes available, or when you want to take an incumbent out, for example. For that, I'm talking about women. Ladies, a lot of the men that I interact with, you know, as soon as you put a black suit and a red tie on a guy, they all think they're presidential. They really do. And I often talk about the fact that the reason why in Los Angeles you have such a low number of women serving in office is because we're not in that pipeline. Someone along the way has told us there's 5 people ahead of you, you're going to have to wait your turn. Not so. When I ran for the LA School Board back in 2009, I was 7 months pregnant. I would not recommend you run while you're pregnant because that was very difficult. But my daughter was born 2 weeks before my 2009 LAUSD school board race, and I wasn't supposed to win then. You know, it so happens that every time I run for office, everyone says someone else is better than you, or someone else has more money than you, or someone else has more endorsements with you than you. But guess what? Nobody has more ganas than Nury Martinez. And that's exactly what it takes to get done. And so when I talk about that pipeline, I talk about you need to get ahead of the line. You need to figure out where those seats are available, raise your money, get your contacts, and make sure you have a tight grassroots campaign to be able to win. That was in 2009. Fast forward, in 2013, I decided to run for the LA City Council. My predecessor is now Congressmember Tony Cardenas. I don't know if you guys know him. He serves us in D.C. He's a great guy and a friend of mine. And I said to myself, again, there was plenty of men ahead of the line. And I said, I'm going to go out and get those endorsements. I'm going to raise my money, and I'm going to walk and walk and walk my district until I get into that primary. Well, it didn't really work out that way. I was elected on a special election because Tony Cardenas had left City Council early because he had run for the U.S. Senate. I'm sorry, for the U.S. Congress. And what happened is I became one of 2 women that were running for this seat. Eventually, everybody else did not garner enough votes, and I ended up having to face a woman in the general election for the LA City Council. But in 2013, I lost my primary by 19 points. 19 points is a huge number to try to come back from. So my primary was in May 23 of 2013, and I was down 19 points. So long story short, a lot of my so-called friends left, and I don't blame them, and I don't hold any resentment. I mean, if I'm endorsing someone and you're down 19 points, you barely even made it into the primary, it was basically what happened to me. She could have won had she garnered more than 50% of the vote. She got 48, and I was 19 points down. So my money left, my so-called friends left, and every endorsement that I had left as well. And I remember it was Memorial Day weekend, and I didn't get out of bed for 3 days. Because, well, you know what? When you raise $300,000 and you think you're going to come in first in a primary, and you let so many people down, it doesn't feel good. And it's okay, ladies. It doesn't always feel good. This is a really tough business. And if we don't figure out a way to emotionally support one another, it makes it very difficult for us to be successful. So I did my crying. I did my venting. And you know what? My 7-year-old daughter, I have one daughter, Isabel, and she was born 2 weeks before that election in 2009. Remember I told you that? Well, Isabel came into my room, and I remember she looked at me and she said, you know, she was almost 4 years old back then, and she looked at me and she goes, you know, Mama, all you have to do is get up and try again. And I said, you know what, Mija, you're right. Because to her, a race meant that we put on our sneakers, and she thought it was a marathon. She didn't quite understand what a campaign was. She does now, but she didn't quite understand it. And so she said, all you need to do, Mama, is get up and try again. And those words will stay with me for the rest of my life. You know what I did? I got up, and I tried again. And I won. And I won in July July 23rd of 2013, I won by 10 points. That was almost a 30-point swing. So if you're a pollster, if you know how groundwork campaigns work, that's almost impossible. That's almost impossible to do, to come back from a 19-point loss. I fired a bunch of people. I got up and I put those sneakers on, and it was the hottest summer in the San Fernando Valley that I can remember, having grown up there my entire life. And I walked for 2 months straight, every single day, letting the voters know who Nury Martinez was and the kinds of issues I had championed in this community. And I turned it around, and I tell all my friends, ladies, get in front of that line, work as hard as you can, and you will become successful. Trust me. So I got to tell this story, but I also have an incredible, incredible sense of responsibility to try to mentor other young women and other women to get elected. Ladies, we make amazing elected officials because of all the issues that we care about. And when people tell me women don't want to run, that is a lie. Women are running businesses, they're running nonprofits. In fact, they're helping men get elected every single election cycle. You run their campaigns, you walk for them, and you go as far as even raising all their money. So guess what? You are ready to run. And in City Hall, the majority of the women running these 14 gentlemen's office are all pretty much women. So the women are absolutely prepared. They're doing their work. They know the information, and they know the issues. We have to get them elected. And we all have to make that commitment of supporting them, not only emotionally, financially, but really being there to mentor the women that are making strides in our communities across this country. I'm committed to doing that. You can count on me. It's a pleasure to be here with the LULAC women. Thank you so much for having me here today. And I look forward to continuing to be a friend of LULAC. Thank you very much.
Oh my God, how inspiring. Thank you, Councilwoman Martinez, for being here with us today and inspiring everyone in here. I think there was no noise. We're honored that you were able to join us here today, and we have a little token of our appreciation on behalf of LULAC and the Women's Commission.